I'm 77 years old. My name is Charles. And there's something I finally admitted to myself not long ago, sitting alone one New Year's morning when the house was quiet and my hands were shaking a little from the cold. Every year of my adult life, I told myself I would take risks. I said it like a promise, like a plan. And now, looking back, I see how carefully I avoided every single one. I see a whole other life I talked about but never stepped into. That truth sits heavy. It doesn't shout. It just stays. I didn't always know that was what I was doing. For a long time, I thought I was being patient, responsible, sensible. I thought I was waiting for the right time. I didn't know the waiting would become my life. I was young the first time I said it. I must have been in my early 20s. New Year's Eve. I remember the smell of cigarette smoke and cheap wine. Someone asked what my resolution was, and I laughed and said, I'm going to be braver this year. Everyone nodded like that made sense. I believed it too. Back then, I had ideas. I don't even like calling them dreams, because that sounds bigger than they felt. They were more like quiet wants. Things I didn't say too loudly. I wanted to leave my hometown. I wanted to try work that scared me a little. I wanted to tell people how I felt, instead of swallowing it. Nothing dramatic. Just small risks. Honest ones. But every year, when January came, real life showed up first. Bills, expectations, other people's needs. I told myself, not this year, next one. I'll do it when things calm down. Let me tell you something nobody warned me about. Things don't calm down. You just get used to them. I took a job I didn't hate, which felt like enough. It paid the rent. People liked me there. I learned how to be useful. I learned how to stay in my lane. Each year, when New Year's came around, I said the same thing. This year, I'll take a chance. And then, I didn't quit. Didn't move. Didn't speak up. Didn't apply. Didn't try. I told myself I was different. I wasn't. I fell in love once in my late 20s. Or maybe early 30s. Time blurs now. I know how it felt, though. It felt like standing near a cliff and wanting to step forward, but keeping your feet planted. She wanted more than I was offering. More honesty, more commitment, more courage. I kept telling her I needed time. She kept waiting until she couldn't anymore. The night she left, I stood in the doorway and watched her pack. She wasn't angry. That made it worse. She said she couldn't build a life on maybes. I told her I understood. I didn't chase her. I told myself love would come again when I was ready to risk something. It did come again, a few times. And each time, I held back just enough to keep myself safe. I called it being careful. I called it being realistic. I didn't call it fear. I should have. Years passed. Promotions came and went. Friends moved on. Some tried businesses. Some moved countries. Some failed loudly. I watched from the side and told myself I was content. Content is a word that can hide a lot. Every December, something stirred in me. That quiet itch. That voice that said, you're still here. You haven't gone. You haven't tried. I would sit with a notebook and write the same lines. This is the year I take a risk. This is the year I change something. And then January would arrive, and I would fold the notebook and put it away. If you're doing this right now, listen carefully. Pay attention to the things you keep promising yourself and never doing. They don't disappear. They wait. There is one moment that still visits me. I was 41. A friend offered me a chance to join him in a small business. Nothing guaranteed. Less money at first. More uncertainty. I felt alive just talking about it. I went home and stared at the ceiling all night. In the morning, I called him and said no. I said it was too risky. He understood. Years later, his business failed, and then he tried again, and then it worked. I don't envy his success as much as I envy his courage to fail and keep going. I stayed. I always stayed. Another new year. Another promise. Another quiet disappointment I didn't name. The risks I imagined got smaller over time. At first, they were about changing my life. Later, they were about changing a part of it. Speaking up in meetings, telling someone how I felt, saying yes to invitations I usually declined. Even those felt heavy. I became good at explaining myself. I could tell you exactly why now wasn't the time. I sounded reasonable. People nodded. They didn't know what I was giving up because I didn't say it out loud. I remember turning 50. That birthday shook me more than I expected. I sat alone that night and thought, I still have time, plenty of it. That was a lie. I told myself gently, like you tell a child something to calm them down. Let me pause here and ask you something. What is one thing you've been meaning to do for years that you still haven't done? Don't answer quickly. Let it surface on its own. For me, it was always the same things, wearing different clothes. As I got older, my body started to change. Energy faded. Recovery took longer. Risks didn't feel exciting anymore. They felt tiring. I told myself that was just aging. But the truth was, I had trained myself to avoid discomfort for so long that any stretch felt unbearable. I watched my parents age. I watched friends die. I told myself their lives were different, that I had chosen stability. That choice started to feel smaller as the years passed. The realization came quietly, not in one big moment. I was 68, retired, free, in theory. I woke up one morning with no schedule and nowhere to be. I sat at the table and realized I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had spent decades postponing my wants until I didn't know them anymore. That scared me more than failure ever did. I tried to start then, took a few classes, traveled a little, but it felt like visiting a place I should have lived in. The edges were sharp, the joy was muted. Some doors only open easily when you're young enough to walk through them without thinking. I don't say that to discourage you. I say it because it's true. Now, at 77, the days are slower, quieter. I have time to think, which is both a gift and a weight. I think about the conversations I never started, the paths I never stepped on, the versions of myself that stayed imaginary. The regret isn't loud. It doesn't scream at me. It sits beside me, like someone who waited a long time to be acknowledged. I thought I was being patient. I was being afraid. I want you to hear this clearly. I'm not saying everyone should chase big dreams or blow up their life. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about the small risks that let you feel alive. The ones that make your heart beat faster for a moment. The ones that remind you you're here. Later is not guaranteed. And later often arrives tired. If this story stirred something in you, don't rush past it. Sit with it today. If it feels right, leave a comment about one thing you've been putting off. Not for me, for yourself. And if you know someone who keeps saying one day, maybe share this with them quietly. If you'd like to hear more reflections like this, you're welcome to subscribe. These stories come from the far side of life. They aren't meant to impress. They're meant to be honest.